Design inspiration, real-life makeovers, and the latest in pop culture. This is the Uploft Interior Design Podcast with Betsy Helmuth.
I just got back from the city from taking a 3-room client on the Upper West Side. It took me longer to drive there and drive home than it did to actually design with my client, but I had so much fun. I'll tell you a little bit about it because it was a fine line that I had to walk here. Okay, so I drive to the Upper West Side from Connecticut. I'd already looked at his floor plan online. I'd already looked at the pictures. The place has amazing views. And essentially, it's a 1-bedroom that they combined with a studio to make one large apartment. But it is a little choppy in the fact that the ceiling heights don't totally match. The previous owners did a lot of cool built-ins and storage, but so many built-ins that they've almost dictated everything that you can do in the space, whether or not you have the same needs. Like they created a ton of storage, but this guy really doesn't have anything to store. Additionally, they made this large media unit in the middle of the room that's supposed to divide the bedroom from the living area. This media unit is 9 feet long by 4 feet deep, and it's double-sided. So in the bedroom area, it's a dresser and storage and like a bookcase. And in the living area, it's got a TV console with storage underneath. Sounds ducky, right? Yeah. But they divided the room up so that the living room is itsy bitsy and the room that they're dedicating for the bedroom is huge and has the longest unbroken wall. So it was, from the pictures, I already thought that the unit was a problem and that it was blocking panoramic views. Yes, panoramic views of Central Park South. It was stunning. But when I got in the space, I was like, oh no, this is a deal breaker. But I just met this guy and the seller's broker was there and the buyer's broker was there and they were both staying in the space. So basically, I've got to talk a little smack about this space. I mean, he's closing tomorrow, so he's buying it. But when I first started talking to him, I just meet him for the first time. He's an attorney. He's so pleasant, but there's no trust. He doesn't know me. And we're talking about the space. And then I mention the fact that I don't love the media unit, that I see some challenges with it. And what does he think? Well, it's a lot more storage than he needs, but he's interested. He likes it. He saw it staged. It was fine. And I was like, how do I bring up the fact that it's the problem? It is the white maple elephant in this room and it's floor to ceiling. And I can see when I looked at the floor that they'd cut out the floor underneath it. So this is not an easy just take it down fix. There's going to be left, some patching problems on both the ceiling and floor. So I say to him, I'm excited to lay out the floor plan with you as you've conceptualized it, right? Bedroom, living room, dining room. But if we have time after we do that, and I knew I'd leave time, I would really like to show you an idea I have. Just want to float it by you. Sometimes I cannot leave well enough alone. Could I have given him a perfectly fine layout with the big old white maple elephant in the room? Of course I could. Could I sleep at night if I had done that? No. So after we laid out the very lackluster design with this big atrocity in the middle of the room, I put it back in my software. I removed the atrocity. We redesigned it. Oh my gosh. It looked spacious. It looked baller. It looked like prime real estate. It was amazing. I'm really glad the previous owner hadn't have done that because he wouldn't have gotten such a good sale price, I imagine. I mean, we transformed that space. And by the time I was done, even though I didn't want him to feel any pressure, I'm not going to move in. I don't care if he actually decides to go with this layout or his previous iteration. But come on. And so by the end, he was like, yeah, I'm totally ripping this out. The cool thing was that we could lay down a rug to cover the flooring. Now, he is going to have to fill the hole with something, but he won't have to do it with something that matches the flooring because we'll cover it with a rug. We'll cover it with the sofa. I'm being very intentional about that, and it fits the flow really well. But it's like, how do you tell somebody something that goes against everything they're thinking, that means more work for them when you first meet them? How do you build that trust? How do you take that leap? And how do you let him know that if he decides not to do that, you understand and you don't take any offense whatsoever? A lot of times I have to tell people tough things, and it is kind of this delicate dance. There is one thing I didn't say. So I'd already gone out on a limb by proposing this major change, but he had purchased a dining table and a rug from the previous owners. And I really did not like either of them. Now, they both fit the space just fine. They'll work just fine. The rug just didn't look fresh. It was like totally kind of a golden color with a neutral beige. It wasn't saying anything. It just didn't look fresh. That's the word. And once we get all the new things in there, I'm just worried that it's going to look less fresh. The dining table, however, was an issue. It is a console table, so it's drop leaf on two sides, and then you can lift up the leaves and prop it open. But because of the way the legs are positioned under the table, nobody's going to sit comfortably. Everybody's going to be hitting their knees on some part of this metal base. Additionally, he never needs it to collapse. So I don't understand what the draw is. And dining tables are so relatively affordable compared to other things. If it was a dresser and it was in great condition, okay. And this table is in great condition, but sitting there is never going to be a pleasant experience. But because I'd already rocked his world with the removal of the media center, and because he's buying it all tomorrow with a check, even though he's already agreed to it, so it's not like, we could turn back time. And because both the real estate agents were there, I was like, Betsy, it's not actually a spatial problem, so just bite your tongue and work with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bite my tongue. I'm going to work with it. I'm not going to say anything. You can always switch it out later, but it's a purchase that's been made that really I would be buying something that's very similar in size, just a totally different look and functionality, because where the legs are on a dining table completely determines not only how many people can fit around that dining table, but also how comfortable it is to sit at. I always think when I'm purchasing dining tables or shopping for dining tables for my clients, where are the legs and what does that mean when I actually sit there? If more people did that, we'd all have more fun dinner parties. Okay, well, that's my design diary for today. Now what I want to do is hop in the mailbag because I heard from an old friend in there. So Lynn, who has written us previously, has written again, and she had a follow-up to my last answer. Now, guys, if you're sitting there listening, you're doing the dishes, you're showering, you're driving your car, and you're like, I have a question for Betsy. I wonder if my dining table's a problem. I wonder if I should remove a built-in. And by the way, if you are purchasing a home and you're going to sell within 3 to 5 years, don't do any built-ins. It's not good. Because a lot of people may not want to live the same way you want to live, as we've seen with the apartment I designed today. And you're locking people into a certain floor plan and a certain usage for the space. And additionally, it's just really expensive. So if you're going to move within 3 to 5 years, buy something retail. Don't do custom. Okay, here we go. Lynn writes, I cut myself off because it's been a long day, guys. Long day. Okay. If you have questions, if you're thinking about writing me, if you're sitting around listening to this podcast and you're like, Betsy, I have design dilemmas, head over to uploft.com/podcast. Once again, that's uploft.com/podcast. Fill out the form, send me your question, illustrate it with some pics, and I will answer it on an upcoming episode. Our mailbag is light, light, light. In other words, after Lynn's question, it's empty. So send in those questions. Don't be deterred. I will get to them really soon. And I want to get you on your way designing like a pro. All right, Lynn writes back. Thank you, Betsy, for answering my flooring question on recent episode 555. You gave me new options to think about that I had not considered. But why did you hold back your Betsy Smackdown? Based on what I've heard you say in past episodes, I expected you to comment on the bar stools at the kitchen peninsula when a table and chairs are close by. I recall that you don't like this arrangement, but I truly use both seating options. Our family room window treatment opportunities. The long, narrow side windows don't have any treatment and the other windows could use some help. By the way, one window treatment's quote I received for these windows was nearly $10,000. And so much more. I love your podcast and obtain so much good information from it. I wish I could implement all your advice. But well, there's the money factor. I hope you have a great trip to Minneapolis soon, Lynn. Lynn, I just got back from my 25th college reunion in Minneapolis. I got back, 3 days ago? I had a blast. I was not going to go. I had mixed feelings about my college experience. In many ways, I loved it. I loved the Twin Cities, obsessed. I liked my small campus. I liked the small class sizes. I went to McAllister College in St. Paul, and it was a little too alternative for me, I would say. It's very liberal arts. So, yeah, there was a lot going on there that I was just processing as a small town girl from Missouri. There were orgies in the common rooms on the regular. Everybody had hair that was dyed a different color than their natural color. It was just a lot to take in. It was a lot. I also had dabbled with dyeing my hair blue, so I wasn't like totally not at all in the universe. And I certainly looked in the window during the orgies, eager to see what the heck was going on, but I never did participate, as we discussed during the reunion. But anyway, so my experience of college was a mixed bag. And the last 2 years of college, I moved off campus and I was so happy to have some independence, to kind of move away from the microcosm that was my graduating class, because it was even smaller than my high school graduating class at less than 500 people. But going back was such a revelation. I had a blast. I saw old friends, and then a lot of people opened up to me about their experiences, and they had mixed experiences too. And I just never knew that. I always assumed that these people I was talking to had a blast in college and that I was kind of the outlier. And it just gave me such peace to hear their thoughts and feelings about the college experience, to hear I wasn't alone. I mean, I'd really been carrying these feelings for 25 years. It was a revelation. If you have a reunion coming up, just go. I actively was not going. And then they asked me to be an MC at the class dinner. If they would not have asked me, I would not have gone to the reunion. I felt honored to have been asked. I didn't feel like a pivotal member of the class. So when I was asked, I was like, oh, okay. And it just really reframed my college experience. So highly recommend. Go to that high school reunion, go to that college reunion, go to any old reunion and see old friends. When do we get to have that kind of sense of nostalgia in our lives? Not very often. Okay, to Lynn's question about why she didn't get a Smackdown. Okay, Lynn, sometimes when you write in with one question, I put my blinders on and I don't look for other issues because, you didn't ask me about that. But let's talk about it. So yes, you mentioned that you have counter stools at the peninsula and then you have a dining table and it's a lot of chairs side by side. And that's absolutely true. But I will tell you, if you have an overhang on a peninsula, on an island, and it's say more than 2 inches, more than 4 inches, you have to put stools there. Now I know it's going to feel awkward just having 4 inches, right? But really visually, it's going to look ridiculous if you don't have stools. The standard amount of space you should have between the edge of the countertop and the start of any sort of cabinetry or base for the island or peninsula is 12 inches. But anything between 4 and 12, you need some kind of stool or chair. And I don't care how close it is to other chairs, they must be there or visually it's going to look naked. So I just wanted to clarify that point, Lynn. That's not really a smackdown for your space. It's more a smackdown for your understanding of my philosophy of stools at islands and peninsulas. And then I think you did the appropriate thing with chairs around your table. It does not look like you have 30 to 36 inches to pull out your chair before hitting the chair rail on the wall, however. So I would certainly adjust this table so it's closer to the stools. But other than that, I think it's right on. Now let's talk about the window treatments because you called that out. And yes, you have so many different size windows in this one room, from transom windows that are small and rectangular to elongated windows, to panoramic windows, to trapezoidal windows. I mean, this room has like 5 different types of windows, and treating it is daunting. And treating all these different windows that are such different shapes similarly also feels daunting. So hopefully you don't need much privacy because you've only treated a few of the windows and left the other ones untreated. I think that's how I would do it too. So, Lynn, I want to give you more of a smackdown. I mean, there's other things that we can improve upon, right? Like, I think this is a lot of wood. I think there's some mix match style. A lot of it's quite contemporary, but then I'm also seeing some transitional pieces, which is making me wonder what the look is here. And I also feel like just scrolling through these pictures, we could use a dose of color in this room, or at least an inspiration piece from which I could derive a color palette. So certainly there are things to fix and things to think about. Oh, and I got to draw attention to this. Your art piece above the dining table is a nice big piece, which I'm really excited by, but it appears to be a photograph of a totally different dining area. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where somebody puts a photograph of a completely different dining area above their dining area. Unless you're trying to be silly and tongue-in-cheek, I'm not sure that's the way I would have gone. But I hope there's some kind of story around this meta dining table moment. And if there's not, maybe switch out the art in that frame. All right, Lynn, you got your smackdown after all. Guys, don't let my sassy opinions and my floor plan smackdown with my client this morning dissuade you from writing to me. I will give you my advice and you can choose whether you take it or not. But head on over to uploft.com/podcast so that you can write to me and hear what I have to say. I'd love to share my opinions. You know that's what I live for. Until next week, bye. A big thanks to our producer Jeremy Young and to Aton and the Embassy for our theme music. And shout out to our parent company, Uploft Interior Design, your trusted source for expert interior design. Visit uploft.com to explore our services and book a consultation with one of our talented designers. If you're enjoying the Uploft Interior Design Podcast, please support us by sharing the show with friends and leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It's the best way to help new listeners find us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week with more pro tips and pop culture dish.